Greetings, welcome to 3 Lanes number 23. Today we're gonna go a little bit off the cuff and but the main subject of today's episode is going to be prime lenses and zoom lenses. Why are we touching on that today? Um well, I mainly shoot prime, and it's not because I only own prime lenses. I own prime lenses for digital mainly, but I also own zoom lenses, but for film photography. So my film cameras, some of them have zoom lenses, but most of the time I'm shooting. Actually, all the time I'm shooting prime. But this last week I rented a zoom lens because a coworker, told me about this 2.8 zoom lens, 2.8 all around, and the range is from 16 to 55. There's many brands that have it. I think most of them do. It's kind of like a standard lens that brands have, but he told me, well, I use it a lot, and I think you would enjoy it. You could get good photos out of it. And in a sense, I appreciate it, or I appreciated the fact of having it, because it's basically the range that I mostly use. I use a prime of 35 and 56 millimeters, and this is in Fuji. So, this is APS-C, so you would have to do the equivalence of that. So I think it would be kind of like a 55 equivalent for my 35 millimeter for full frame, and my 56 millimeter would be an 85 millimeter equivalent. So that one's for portraits, but that's mainly what I shoot. And honestly, I've had some or really good results overall. Like, I don't mind moving around to get the framing better. Or a lot of times, if I'm shooting, for example, watches, I use the 35 because I can get really close with it. Not macro shots, but I can get pretty close for like a wrist shot, or somebody's showing a watch. I can get pretty close with it compared to the 56, which you can get somehow close, and it's a really really good lens, but I cannot get as close with the 56. But in this case, with the zoom lens, I was able to get even closer than with the 35, which was very appreciated. And I've been having fun. I've been shooting at home with it. My one of my kids have a Spider-Man that we it's it's sitting around somewhere. He doesn't really play with it a lot, but we have fun putting it in different poses. And like one day he would be doing something or grabbing another toy, or another time he would just be sitting down on a table. Like funny poses. We have fun with that. That's our thing. But yeah, I kind of wanted to not do a super deep dive on prime and zoom lenses, but more so give more like of a general idea of why these exist and why we use them. So I guess we can begin, but we can start by saying that uh, lenses have undergone many transformations since the inception of photography in the early 19th century. Prime and zoom lenses each have different origins and purposes, for that matter. They have shaped the way images are captured nowadays, while we have advancements in optical engineering, and we can redefine the capabilities. Zoom lenses are very, very capable now. I thought I wasn't going to, well, I knew zoom lenses were pretty capable, but I didn't think I was going to have such a good results with such a relatively small lens like this Fuji. But yeah, we're going to see the historical development of this two type of lenses, optimal use cases until now, right? Because later on, who knows? photography might evolve, and we might be using zoom lenses more than prime lenses, or zoom lenses might be regarded as better quality than prime later in life. Who knows? Um, we'll see the future trajectories of these lenses alongside the evolving role of interchangeable lens systems in the photographic industry. But let's start with prime lenses. And prime lenses characterized by fixed focal lengths. So obviously you cannot zoom, if not we're not having this conversation today. But they emerge as the foundational tools of early photography. The term prime derives from the Latin primus, like the band Primus, meaning first, reflecting their status as the earliest photographic lenses. They're simple single element lenses, such as those used by some old photographers, but they suffer chromatic aberration and field curvature, and they needed innovations like achromatic doublets. And there's a breakthrough that came in 1840 with Joseph Petzval, and he invented the Petzval portrait lens, and he was the first mathematically computed lens. The design of the lens was the first one being mathematically computed, meaning he played with physics to get the best lens he could. It's f or 3.6 aperture, allowed exposures under 1 minute. Wow, that's pretty fast. Revolutionizing portrait photography, and by the late 19th century, prime lenses became synonymous with optical excellence, offering sharper images and wider apertures than their zoom counterparts. Now let's move to zoom lenses. Zoom lenses, they enable variable focal lengths. They trace their conceptual roots to the 19th centuries with telescopic innovations, as you may have imagined. The British mathematician Peter Barlow experimented with variable focal length telescopes in 1834, and George Eastman, with who we know has invented Kodak. He had a patent on a telescopic camera in 1892. However, practical zoom lenses for photography emerged much later in 1923. Paramount Pictures developed early zoom systems for cinematic use, and by the 1950s, Frank Back, he had a Zoomar 36 to 82 with aperture of 2.8. He became the first zoom lens for 35mm still cameras. French firms like Ingenieux further refined zoom technology in the mid-20th century, paving the way for the widespread adoption of zooms in both cinema and still photography. The prime lenses, going back to prime lenses, these were designed to maximize optical performance. Their fixed focal length simplified construction, and this allowed engineers to minimize chromatic aberrations or any aberrations from the lens and achieve wider apertures. For instance, the Petzval lens of 3.6 aperture was 22 times faster than earlier daguerreotype lenses, enabling practical portrait photography. By the 20th century, primes like the Ernostar 85mm aperture of 1.8, this is in 1924 by the way, and the Zeiss Sonar 50mm f1.5 by 1932, pushed low light capabilities, and it cemented their role in photojournalism and artistic photography. A lot of times I've seen interviews with photojournalists, and they vary the lens that they use. A lot of them use mostly prime, just like they can shoot color or they can shoot black and white. I know the photojournalism is mostly color, just so you see the actual picture of what's happening in the field. Zoom lenses. Zoom lenses address the need for compositional flexibility without lens changes. Early zooms, such as Taylor and Hobson's Barrow, this in 1930s, were initially niche tools for scientific and cinematic applications. The post-World War II era saw zooms democratized for consumer use with box zoomer lens, exemplifying the shift toward versatile multifocal length solutions. Zooms became indispensable in fast-paced environments like sports. You see in like soccer games or fast-paced games like football or I never paid attention in hockey, but you see the photographers with the huge lenses that look like a bazooka. Sometimes they have a monopod, or sometimes they're just like sitting on like the side of the field, or you see them now. Well, not with huge lenses, but like sports like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, MMA. You see them with like a little smaller lenses, but still zoom lenses. Um, Zooms became indispensable in fast-paced environments like sports, like we said. Wildlife photography, you also see them for car racing zooms. This where rapid framing adjustments. This is scenarios where rapid framing adjustments are critical. And now we have optimal use cases for each one of them. So the prime offers superior sharpness, wider apertures like 1.2 or 2.8, and they're compact. They're way more compact than a zoom. So those are its strength of the zoom. I mean the prime, sorry. Ideal applications, you have portraits, low light photography, street photography, architectural detail, fine art. The zoom, on the other hand, the strengths, you could say focal length versatility, reduced lens changes, and advanced stabilization. The ideal application for a zoom could be events, travel journalism, sports, wildlife, videography. So the prime lenses in practice. Prime lenses excel in scenarios demanding optical perfection. Their wide apertures enable shallow depth of field and low light performance, making them staple for portrait and night photography. The fixed focal length also encourage creative discipline, as photographers must zoom with their feet. Man, you don't know how many times I've heard this. And they need to zoom with their feet to compose the shots, right? So if you want to get closer to the subject, you have to walk to it. You have to physically get close to it. Zoom lenses, modern zoom lenses such as the Nikon Zoom Nikkor 28 to 45, aperture 4.5, balance versatility with quality. And I was hesitant about mentioning any lenses specifically because obviously I haven't tried any Nikon lens. But high-end zooms like the Sony 24 to 70, which is kind of almost the range that I was talking about. The 2.8. This one is a 2.8. It's for Sony, specifically Sony 24 to 70 millimeter. I think this might be full frame. Rival primes in sharpness while offering stabilization, weather sealing for rugged use. Zooms dominate travel and event photography, where carrying multiple primes is very impractical. Yes, true. Technological advancements and optical innovations. Prime lenses. This one is kind of tricky because we were talking about technological advancements, but they haven't been really recent advancements on primes that I know of, besides the ones that I'm going to mention, which is spherical elements. For example, Canon introduced grounded spherical elements to combat spherical aberration with the. This was in 1969, by the way, with the FD 55 millimeter 1.2 AL. This was a milestone of a lens that it was adopted later by the whole industry. Apochromatic correction. The Leeds APO Telit R. This is a 180 millimeter 3.4 aperture. Utilize fluorite and rare earth glasses to eliminate chromatic aberration, setting new standards for telephoto primes. Finally, coatings. The C's anti-reflective coatings in 1935 boosted light transmission to 90%, reducing flare and ghosting. So these are the main prime. technological advancements. Let's move to zooms. The zooms, optical formulas, like in 1964, Ingenue, the 35 to 144 millimeter f4 demonstrated that zooms could match prime sharpness through advanced multi-group designs. By the way, if you're listening to this and you're not into photography, but you hear me say aperture or f4, this means the aperture means how wide you can open a lens and how much light it lets in. The f4 is the same thing, right? So the smaller the number, the better, meaning the wider you can open it, which is, it's a contradiction because you would think, okay, the bigger the number, the wider I can open it. No, in this case, it's the opposite. But okay, let's keep going. I just wanted to make that parentheses. Constant apertures for zoom lenses. Remember, we're still in zoom lenses. Lenses like Canon EF 28 to 70 millimeter f2 maintain f2 across the zoom range, blurring the line between primes and zooms, just like the one I rented, the 2.8. Pretty good. I have no complaints. It's a huge lens, meaning it's pretty wide. It's wider than the 5.6, 5.6, the 56 millimeter, sorry, that I have. And it keeps a 2.8 all across, which is really good. Stabilization and autofocus. In lens stabilization and ultrasonic motors, these enhance usability in handheld and video scenarios for zoom lenses, which offers a huge advantage. So what is the future of this whole interchangeable lenses situation? Well, there's some technological disruptions happening. Computational optics, like AI-driven aberration correction, as seen in smartphones, could allow cheaper lenses to achieve premium performance. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. It might be. Metamaterials, meaning ultra-thin flat lenses using nanostructure materials, promise to make everything smaller. Telephoto lens designs might be smaller, and they would keep the same quality. Liquid lenses. This one threw me off a little bit because it's electrically adjustable liquid lenses, already in use in industrial uses, and these may enable instant focus shifts, zoom mechanism without moving parts. That would be insane. Let's see some market trends and industry shifts. The interchangeable lens market is projected to grow 5.2 billion from 5.2 billion in 2023 to 9.3 by 2033. So in 10 years, it will still be growing around 4 billion. The whole industry of interchangeable lenses, yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? Sorry. Driven by mirrorless camera adoption, third-party manufacturers like Sigma, Tamron are eroding brand loyalty with high-quality, affordable alternatives. Yes, this is true. I think Sigma, it might be Tamron. I think it's Tamron. Has the equivalent of the same lens that I rented. Is definitely cheaper. The only issue, if I end up buying a lens like that, I mean, one is expensive, and the second one is I've found the Fuji branded lens for cheaper than the Tamron. The Tamron, I only find it new, but at Tamron it's just a little bit more expensive new than a Fuji used. So the Fuji might be like $600 and the Tamron might be like 700 new. I think I got those numbers right. But yeah, honestly, these guys are pushing really, really good lenses lately. And if you are into photography or you're getting into photography, you're going to have a lot of options, meaning you don't have to be stuck just with the brand that you buy the camera from or the body from. Meanwhile, zooms increasingly dominate sales. Primes retain niche appeal for their unique rendering and ultra-wide apertures. So this is a trend. Remember, this is a trend and how the industry is going. Sustainability and customization. Future lenses may emphasize modularity, allowing users to swap optical groups or integrate AI chips for real-time adaptation to shooting conditions. Environmentally conscious designs, such as recycle materials and reduce reliance on rare earth elements, are likely to gain traction as regulations tighten. Well, this is it. This was the episode for this week. I'm posting this one very late. I'm recording on a Friday. I started a new class this week, and it's kicking my butt. This one is accounting. I have zero idea of accounting. It's not it's not hard. It's just I have to take it slow. I have to take my time since it's new concepts, new stuff basically. But yeah, we can do episodes about accounting if anybody's interested. But yeah, again, here we go. These are prime lenses and zoom lenses. Brief history. We'll see how much AI and electronic developments change everything. Sometimes I get thrown off like by firmware update for a camera. How much of the photo is or how much how much of the photo is being created by the camera? I would like to believe not a lot, but at least the colors and all that stuff. It's a lot of contribution from the camera. A lot of times that's why it makes me want to stick with film, because you have, I don't know, it might be the fallacy, or it might be a lie that I'm telling myself about. I'm having more control about the photography rather than with a digital. I don't know, but yeah, it was just an idea that crossed my head. Well, thanks again for listening. I appreciate your time. Thanks again for stopping by. I'll see you next week. Hopefully, I'll be able to post Tuesday or latest Thursday. Thanks again. See you next week. Bye.